Well, it's the holiday season, so that means we made it to the end of this 2023 Jiu-Jitsu season. And there's no better way to reminisce than to look back at which fighters had the best Jiu-Jitsu seasons this competition year. So let's crack right into it and get this list kicked off. Okay, before we get right into it, I want to preface this list by saying this is just my opinion, but I've watched a lot of jiu-jitsu this year and I think I have my finger on the pulse of what went on. That being said, I know some of you are going to be dying to chime in and tell me how wrong I am, so please feel free to do so in the comments. But if you do agree with any of my picks, please leave a like on the video. Now, I'm basing this list on these athletes' activity rate, meaning how much they competed, how dominant they were in their performances, and how big the matches were that they won. That means if somebody won some random open match up in Alaska, it's weighted at a much smaller value than if somebody won their 27th match in an 80cc trials run. Okay, and now that we're mostly on the same page, let's get right into it. Number 10. Easily the hardest decision of the whole list was picking who would be the 10th spot, but I went with Giancarlo Bodoni. Bodoni. He's so good and really had some very bright moments in 2023, but started it off on a pretty rough note and didn't solidify anything to make this a career year. He competed in mostly smaller events, but did meet some top tier competition like at the 80cc Dallas Open where he secured gold and led his team to some great matches in the first AIGA championship event, but overall some losses and even just some underwhelming wins that feel like they should have gone differently for the defending 80cc champ left a lot of room for disappointment this year. There's no doubt he can be a top 5 grappler in the world, but in 2023 he just didn't quite have it in him, and it's why he falls so low on this list. Number 9. Joseph Chen. Joseph really exploded on the scene out of nowhere in 2021, getting 3rd place at 80cc trials as a 17-year-old after only really training jiu-jitsu for a few years. And in 2023 at 18, he showed that this was not just a fluke, showcasing his evolved game at the AIGA championships and at a quintet representing the B team with some great performances and a new style of passing, guard play, and a set of submission finishes that were pulling a lot of attention online. But what really earned him a spot on this list was his incredible return to the Asian 80cc trials in 2023, where he went through one of the toughest gauntlets of an 80cc division in history. Joseph subbed his first 2 opponents and somehow ended up drawing Mateusz Szczynski, Tommy Langacker, and Oliver Taza if he was going to win. And he ended up dominating all 3 80cc veterans to win the gold and punch his ticket to the Worlds. Joseph is truly the breakout star of 2023. Number 8. Jacob Couch. The Hillbilly Hammer started his 2023 season, his first as a black belt, on a bit of a shaky note with some ups, but also some downs, getting submitted by Igor Tanabe and then getting outclassed by Isaac Michel on the Who's Number 1 stage, having his guard passed repeatedly. And this was surprising for a guy with such a strong guard, but maybe Jacob was struggling to get his footing as a black belt as he continued to fall short at Nogi Pans and again at the 80cc Chicago Open. But it was clear that Couch had his eyes set on one goal for 2023, and that was the 80cc East Coast Trials. And Couch showed up in a way that nobody expected, submitting opponent after opponent on his way to the gold medal and earning himself the invite to 80cc Worlds. Couch's weekend would end with 7 matches, 7 submissions, including wins over 80cc vets like J-Rod in the semifinal and Elder Cruz in the final. And Elder had beat him in all 3 of their previous meetings to make the victory just that much sweeter for Couch. Couch truly had a magical weekend at East Coast Trials, showing off an incredible close guard and control over his opponents like nobody else had, solidifying him as one of the best leg lock finishers in the world this past year. Number 7. Dante Leon. Dante's 2023 season was very chaotic and all over the place, starting off with some smaller events like a Grappling Industries where he fought in the final with ultra heavyweight world champion Cyborg Abreu and nearly beat him in a close decision loss. From there, Dante switched up and announced that he was looking to start competing at 155 pounds to take on a new class of competitors closer to his size, and he would end up winning the Who's Number 1 lightweight title, submitting Ruan Alvarenga by rear naked choke. From there, the chaos continued, and in just a few months, he would submit elite black belt opponents at up to 195 pounds, then back down to 155, back up to 167, and up again to 182 pounds in sequence, emphasizing how willing he was to just fight everybody. He's always been a top competitor in the Nogi world, but in 2023, Dante just had a new edge that we've never seen him carry before, with a chip on his shoulder and something new to prove in every match. His confidence has truly felt different in the way that he's handling much bigger opponents and attacking them non-stop. Like this wrist lock he hit at the AIGA Mexico World Championships in about a minute over a much bigger opponent. This chip on his shoulder also brought him up to the ultra heavyweight division at no-gi pans, which meant he would be competing with 215 plus pound opponents, despite making 155 pounds multiple times just a few months before. And Dante pulled off the impossible, winning the Pan Championship at ultra heavyweight while beating Goliaths like Devontae Johnson and Lucas Lira. Dante truly exemplifies any time, any place, and could really be argued as the best pound for pound in the world this year. Number 6, Luke Griffith. To summarize Luke Griffith's year is pretty simple, and I'll let you hear it directly from him.
Tell me about the streak. What is it exactly?
So far, I think with 3 matches today, I'll be at 41 matches total for the year, with 1 loss, and all 40 wins being by submission.
That's incredible.
So, yeah. I didn't realize it until I got back from Euros, and I was just trying to count up all the matches I had for the year. And I couldn't remember a single one that I had won by decision. So I went back and looked, and I hadn't won any by decision. So, yeah.
And yes, you could argue that many of the 40 subs were at the brown belt level, but this also includes massive wins on the world stage over black belts like Roosevelt Souza, Elder Cruz, and many others. He completed a flawless IBJJF no-gi major run, double golding at Pans, Euros, and Worlds, as well as a flawless ADCC trials run while he was at it. And going into ADCC Worlds in 2024, he's easily one of the scariest guys to look out for. Number 5, Mika Galvao. Mika competed primarily in Brazil this year at some one-off super fight or tournaments, both in the gi and without. Of his 29 matches listed on BJJ Heroes, he hit 25 submissions of all different kinds. Leg locks, chokes, arm bars, you name it, he hit it on someone. Mika's game is so complete, and he really showed it off at Who's Number 120 in the welterweight tournament, where he absolutely smashed J-Rod and PJ Barch to win the welterweight belt. This was a fairly active year for the young black belt, and I'm betting next year could be huge for Mika, given the ADCC Worlds event, and his IBJJF suspension will be up, so we should see his return there again. But Mika's hype over the last few years has not disappointed at all, and this year was just as promising as any other. The kid is really special in every aspect of grappling, and his creativity of attacks and movement is unlike any other before him. He's only 20, and I truly believe that if he can continue to grow, he'll have a real shot at an ADCC super fight title one day with his current trajectory. Number 4, Diego Pato. Diego Pato Oliveira was one of the busiest athletes on the scene in 2023, with 36 matches across both the gi and in no-gi. As one of the best leg lockers in the sport with an unpassable guard, Pato is a lock to win in most no-gi events and finishes the year strong, winning the IBJJF No-Gi World Championships at featherweight, and also had a year-defining super fight win at Who's Number 120 over number 1 ranked featherweight ADCC champion Diogo Reis, where he won the belt. Yes, the match ended early because Diogo Reis got injured, but Pato had Diogo on his heels defending some deep attacks the whole time and had both judges' favors before the match had to be stopped. And oh yeah, if that isn't enough for you, he also won Worlds in the gi in 2023 and was the only male athlete in the world to do both at the black belt level. Pato clearly earned the number 1 featherweight spot and is the king of the IBJJF this year, and it's not even close. Okay, before we get into the top 3, here are some honorable mentions or caveats. We have to address the elephant in the room, and that's Gordon Ryan. Obviously, he's the best in the game right now, undoubtedly, but he can't possibly make the top season list of 2023 having only 1 match. Even though he looked as good as he did against Patrick Gaudio, his injuries left him sidelined, so he had a weak year. End of story. Continuing with other new wave names like Big Dan and Oliver Taza, who both had great years and competed more than pretty much everyone. They both did a ton of smaller super fights in tournaments like ADCC Opens and Trials, IBJJF tournaments, and random smaller events. They both had great moments, Big Dan even securing a spot at ADCC Finals by winning East Coast Trials, but because of their insane amount of matches, it left room for some not so great performances and some losses that made them fall just short of the list. On the other hand, Craig Jones actually had a pretty quietly great year, despite doing his very best to get easy matches. The best highlights came with his victory over Felipe Pena and his 2 subs in the quintet to secure the win for B Team, and the rest of the B Team also had pretty solid years. Nicky Ryan with a bunch of submissions in his 2nd place performance at East Coast Trials, J-Rod keeping his reputation as one of the most exciting guys to watch, and a lot of the lesser known athletes having breakout performances, like Declan Moody, Trials Champ, and Dorian Oliveras, Trials Champ, and Combat Jiu-Jitsu World Champ. Fabricio Andre is another name off the list, who won a lot of cool things this year and never failed to produce must-watch jiu-jitsu. He was on the list originally for me just because he beat Giancarlo Bodoni, the 88 kilogram ADCC champ, as a natural 66 kilogram competitor. That alone is insane to think about. But I ended up taking taking him off at the last second only because of how stacked this list is. The last name I want to mention is Isaac Michel, who easily could have made this list. He too had a pretty flawless year, winning ADCC trials and having some great matches in some big events, but he just didn't quite compete enough or have as many finishes as I would like to have seen from him to make this list this year. Obviously, there are a lot of other names on this list that I'm gonna miss who had great years, so feel free to rip me in the comments. But for now, let's get into my top 3. Number 3, Ffion Davies. The only person with a better IBJJF record in 2023 than Pato is the queen of the IBJJF, Ffion Davies. Ffion returned to Worlds to defend her Gi World Championship, her No-Gi World Championship, and was able to secure double gold, closing the year as the absolute No-Gi World Champion by taking away the double gold aspirations of the much bigger Gabby McComb and subbing her with a beautiful back take and rear naked choke. One of the most satisfying victories of the entire year was Fion's win over Jasmine Hosha at Who's Number 119, where the press conference got heated.
Try to pass my guard with a basic knee cut. I'm curious how she thinks she's really going to beat me.
Care to give any insight?
I'll beat you however you want to be beaten, bitch.
We'd never seen Ffion dealing with trash talk, but her response on the mats was an utter beating and stoic, unemotional confidence to shut Hosha up. Fion's dominance over the last few years has been accelerating, and this year she started separating herself from the pack in the greatest woman of all time conversation. Next year at ADCC, she's pretty much a lock to win her division, and I don't see anyone challenging her anytime soon. Number 2, Victor Hugo. Victor Hugo had an incredible career-defining year, winning the Ultra Heavyweight Championship before also winning the Open class for a double gold day. He made history, submitting both Vinicius Lessa in his weight class and Eric Muniz in the Open final by knee bar. And what made it even more special for Hugo was that this win was a bounce back after losing to Muniz earlier this year by advantage at BJJ Stars. With his Brasileiros performance, there was no doubt that Hugo would be a shoo-in on this list, and it's pretty insane to think that even though he won the title as the best in the world in 2023 in the Gi, he'll probably still go on to win a trials event or get an invite and make it to ADCC for No-Gi next year. Just look at what he did to trials winner Dan Monasoyu at UFC's Fight Pass Invitational, scoring a fundamental Americana lock to get the win in a grueling back and forth match. His guard and athleticism as such a massive person make him an anomaly of an athlete that scores so highly on my list. Plus, he just seems like a really humble and nice guy. Even after dealing with some dirty moves from Big Dan at the UFC event, he remained respectful, and even his call out of Gordon Ryan as his next opponent was super nice. If you were to pick anyone in the world to represent you in a grappling match, Gi or no Gi, my choice in 2023 would be Victor Hugo. Well, unless it's against number 1, Dylan Dennis. No wait, sorry, that's a different list. Number 1, Nicholas Marigali. Nicholas Marigali, the only person to hold a winning record over Victor Hugo in the year of 2023. Marigali returned to reign as the king of the Gi in 2023 by winning double gold at the Pan Ams and going perfect at the IBJJF Heavyweight Grand Prix, where he handedly beat Hugo. Marigali had a perfect 14-14 record in 2023, where he fought the biggest names in the sport and took them out easily. Marigali did not compete at the Worlds, so make of that what you will. However, everybody that was successful at Worlds in 2023 lost to Marigali at some point throughout the year, so we didn't even really need to see him there. To think that Marigali started competing in no-gi only last year and did what he did this year is absolute madness, as he took out Pedro Marinho, Kainan Duarte, and Felipe Pena all by submission and had a 79% submission rate on the year across every match that he did. The level of improvement that he's been able to achieve in his wrestling, his passing, and even his guard in no-gi is becoming unfathomable. Yes, some of his antics outside of the mat can be a bit much for most people, but if you ask me, there is nobody you could put in front of Marigali that he wouldn't beat this year in any rule set, and I cannot wait to see what he has in store for the 2024 season. Well, that's my list, and once again, if you think I missed anybody or messed up the order, please let me know in the comments, and I hope you have a great holidays, and I'll catch you in the new year. Cheers.